We're talking about Oscar William Holden, my dad. And he came from Nashville, Tennessee by way of freight train, which was, I imagine, illegal even then, and got off when the freight train stopped in Chicago. And that's where he learned to play piano. He was so good, the gangsters on the north side wanted him to play. And they said, if you don't play for us, we'll kill you. And the ones on the south side, gangsters on the south side of Chicago said, if you don't play for us, we'll kill you. So he ran. And where he ran to was as far as he could go and still be in the United States. And that was here in Seattle. He was able to play other places around Seattle that the other black musicians couldn't play, simply because he was better than anybody else. He worked in the Seattle Tennis Club when they didn't even allow black people in there. He played on Jackson Street, up and down Jackson Street, because there were several, I would say 50, 60 clubs between 12th and Jackson and First Avenue. He gets most noted for working in the Black and Tan, playing on Jackson Street.
He wouldn't marry and have a family until he could be where they would be born free. No one could do anything for me except him. When everyone else was, mother was gone to bed or gone to work, or she would play music at night like he did, I'd be up in his arms. I was probably the only one of us that he insisted I did piano lessons for at least an hour each day. This was okay to have to practice. It was okay for a while, because then he would sit down and play, and there would be such songs as, "Oh, Daddy, I want a diamond ring, a bracelet and everything." And I'd sing and tap dance while he played. And oh boy, did I think that was my stage. You're All I Need. We watched him compose that at the piano, and our mother and he would exchange looks while he was in the process of to give the nod, okay or not okay. The music in the house was just like peanut butter and bread, morning, noon, and night.
We all lived and breathed music, you know, as we were coming up, because we couldn't walk without running into a note, so to speak, you know, because it was, music permeated our household.
Now the Jackson Street scene, the Black and Tan and the Sessions and any of those clubs that were up and down Jackson, he was the workingest thing you ever seen. If you listen to Art Tatum, you come pretty close. And Art Tatum was all over the piano. It's just like, he played the root. I played the root. And I wasn't worried about getting outside of the root. If you didn't like the way it was written and that's the way I was going to do it, so be it.
In the 30s, when he was at O'Day High School here, he got interested in photography. And he also struck up a friendship with some of the people at Warshall's, which he told me later was the place where anybody serious about photography would go to for supplies. When World War II came along, he liked music and he started going to some of the after-hour clubs down on Jackson Street almost every weekend. And he would take photographs of people there, and then he'd come back the following week and he'd sell the photographs for 50 cents a piece. He was able to make some pretty good money doing that, but he told me that he didn't make a profit because all the money he would feed back into his hobby. He told me that he used to use his camera. He had a press camera, and he was able to bluff his way into different shows in town. And he got so good at that, I guess he just looked like he belonged places. Most of the time, people wouldn't call him on it. He was a very quiet person by nature, and he'd always have a camera. And with that camera, he could go anywhere. He particularly liked the music that was being played in the late 40s, mid-40s, and early 50s here, when Seattle was a major player around the country as far as the jazz circuit nationally. And he would wind up on stage with Count Basie and Duke Ellington. He'd be taking photographs, and I guess people just assumed that he was a press photographer or somebody that the management had brought in to take pictures. To me, there's a certain aliveness about the photographs. My reaction is I can almost for a moment find myself in the photograph. I can almost for a moment feel like I'm there. And many of his photographs, to me, seem to have an energy about them. I think sometimes the eye is capturing it at just a moment before the expression changes. There's one photograph, for example, of Duke Ellington, and he's just finishing a set, or looks like that, and he's just finishing up, and he's lifting his hands off the piano, and he's got this expression of you can almost hear his mind out loud. That was good. That was just great. You can just feel that energy in the photograph. There's another photograph of a African-American soldier, and he's listening to a fella who's doing a saxophone solo, and he's just in ecstasy. Many of the musicians who would come to town on a regular basis, evidently, they were aware of these after-hour clubs. This was during the period in Seattle when the blue laws were in force, and so clubs had to close down rather early hours for the nightlife. So people were still energized and they needed a place to go, and these after-hour clubs were bottle clubs where you essentially would bring your own bottle.
All the ladies wore hats and fashionable dresses and gloves, sophisticated. And the gentlemen, suits with cuffs, like Dad. I would sneak into the club. Oh, that's Oscar's daughter. And I'd sneak out because they knew when it was going to be raided. Nobody was killing anybody. Very few people went to jail. It was just have a good time.
His major focus was on capturing the dynamic of people in the midst of just glee, just enjoying these clubs and the music that was played. The photographs that he would take, to me, they give a sense of the diversity and the toleration that Seattle had during the 40s. I think it's safe to say it was unusual. That whole era of about 8 to 10 years to him was just fascinating. And he really made it a commitment to capture as much of it as he could.
You're all I need to make my dreams come true. You're all I need to chase away the blues. You are all I need when I'm in a sentimental mood.
Girls are decked out.
Oh yeah, all have their hats on.
Yeah.
Is that a soldier? Yeah.
Are these at the Black and Tan? And
No, these would most likely be down at the rocking chair, is my guess.